The March 9th, 2022 meeting of the Local Planning Agency of the City of Dunedin will now come to order. The Local Planning Agency is an advisory board of citizens appointed by the City Commission. This board is comprised by volunteers who represent the thoughts and concerns of the community. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to make recommendations to the City Commission regarding each item on the agenda. Tonight we'll be conducting public hearings. Therefore, this meeting is open to the public. Anyone in the audience who wishes to give testimony to any of the items on the agenda will need to be sworn in by the city clerk. This swearing-in process will occur after tonight's first agenda item, which will be the approval of the draft minutes from the last LPA meeting. Please be aware that this local planning agency is not a quasi-judicial board and therefore has no final decision-making power. Our procedures, however, are structured in a quasi-judicial manner for the benefit of those who come before it. Tonight's format will be as follows. I will introduce each item on the agenda, after which the city representative will present information about it. Thereafter, the members of the local planning agency will respond to the city representative. Finally, anyone from the public may come forward. Those from the public wishing to give testimony will need to approach the dais, identify themselves, and then utilize the speaker's lectern in order for their comments to be recorded. Upon the conclusion of the public hearing, the local planning agency will consider the evidence before it and will vote on the agenda item. That voice vote is the rendition of the order of the board, and there will be no written decision issued by the board. The first item on tonight's agenda is the approval of the draft minutes from the January 12th, 2022 LPA meeting. Are there any corrections, additions, or deletions to the minutes? Hearing none from the board, I did find one, and I have presented that to city staff, which has been corrected. If there are no others, do I have a motion for accepting the minutes as corrected?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as corrected.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes as corrected. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. Motion carries unanimously to approve the minutes as corrected. The city clerk will now swear in all persons wishing to speak to or give testimony to any of tonight's agenda items.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Second item on our agenda tonight is application DR-22-02, design review approval for the J Hotel, a 3-story, 68-room boutique hotel at 491 and 469 Causeway Boulevard. Has anyone had any ex parte communication regarding this application? DR-2201, sorry. Has anyone had any ex parte communication regarding that application, this application? None? All right, then I'll turn this over to our city representative, Mr. DePasqua.
Good evening, Joseph DePasqua on behalf of the Community Development Department. So tonight we're going to do a staff presentation for you on application DR-2201. This project is the J Hotel. The request before you is a design review approval for the actual structure and the development of the site. The owner is Grant Street Partners Dunedin LLC. The representatives who are here this evening are Doug Anderson with the development side and property owner side, and Charlie Wilson with the Toronto Blue Jays. The architect for the project is SDG Architecture. Synergy Civil Engineering is the civil engineer of record, and the development team is called Coastal ICF Construction Services. That's Mr. Anderson's firm. The public hearing dates for this scheduled design review are, of course, tonight. The LPA will consider the application. We're expecting first hearing to take place on April 7th of next month, and the second and final hearing will take place on April 21st. Some information about the property. We do have 2 parcels involved in this project. Parcel 1 is 491 Causeway Boulevard. It's approximately 0.85 acres. The property sits in a flood zone, a special flood hazard area, zone AE, with an elevation of 10. The existing land use on the property, you may recall we have a new comp plan. I'm going to probably bring that up a couple times just to refresh. This used to be commercial general. It is now coastal high hazard area retail and services, or CHHA R&S. The zoning district of that site is also form-based medium, FXM. And the existing use on the site is a car wash facility. And so that's the larger parcel that will be part of this project. The smaller parcel, parcel 2, is address 469 Causeway Boulevard. It is 0.41 acres, located in the same flood zone, shares the same land use, shares the same zoning, and it's been vacant. And as best we can tell, it's been vacant for many years. It's probably never been developed. Project overview. The applicant is requesting, as I mentioned, design review approval subject to an approved development agreement. You saw that previously, to build a new 3-story, 68-room boutique hotel on the subject properties. The hotel will consist of 2 floors of guest rooms, over ground floor parking, plus the usual amenities you'd find in a hotel: meeting space, dining area, staff offices, laundry, and then they will include a ground floor swimming pool. Primary use of the hotel, as you know from the development agreement discussions, will be by the Toronto Blue Jays during spring training and the regular season for the duration of the license agreement between the city and the Blue Jays. And only a small number of rooms will be available to the general public during certain times of the year. Here is an aerial vicinity map. I know you're familiar with this from previous actions, but to familiarize anybody else who may not be, we have 2 sites here. The 469 is the westernmost site. It's just a little bit smaller. It's the vacant property. And then 491 Causeway is the car wash facility. And you can see where it sits on the south side of Causeway Boulevard. The street view, these were captured in December of last year. You can see this is the car wash facility located at 491 Causeway Boulevard. If the project is approved, obviously this facility would be demolished and removed to make way for the new hotel. And then moving to the west is the 469 Causeway Boulevard property. This is the vacant parcel, as you can see. It's just a grass. It's got a number of trees and shrubs on it, but for the most part, it's been vacant in this condition for many years. So from a development standpoint, we all know a lot of what drives development starts at the land use plan level. As I mentioned earlier, both properties are in that CHHA R&S land use, and you can see that's a predominant land use along the causeway and in the surrounding areas. Talking a little bit about the land use analysis. So CHHA R&S, what does that mean? And because it's a relatively new land use category, we wanted to give you a basic description. So it's located in the coastal high hazard area. That's within evacuation level A, and adjacent to activity centers where surrounding uses support and are compatible with intensive commercial uses in areas supported by arterial or major collector roadways. So you can see why that land use was placed on that property. It makes sense. So you have permitted and secondary uses in the land use. And of course, you can see one of the permitted primary uses is transient accommodation, which of course would include a hotel. So the proposal, as it's being presented, comports with the land use plan designation for the property. Moving into how you calculate density, and I know a lot of this is repetitive from the development agreement, but I think it's worth going over again. Under our comprehensive plan, we look to the corresponding countywide land use for allowable temporary lodging density. In this case, the corresponding category is retail and services, R&S. And that land use classification allows up to 40 units an acre for temporary lodging by right. And then per a section of the countywide plans, you can request up to 60 units an acre with a development agreement. And as you know, we do have a development agreement in place. The 2 properties combined are 1.26 acres and would therefore support that 50 units if it was to use the base density allowable without a development agreement, and up to 76 using the allowable up to 60 units an acre. The 68 room hotel is a 18-room increase over that base density, and it ends up with a developed density of about 54 temporary lodging units an acre. So naturally, that development agreement was required for those additional 18 temporary lodging units that are proposed for the site. Little background and reminder, in October of last year, the commission authorized the city manager to pursue those negotiations and to enter into a development agreement. At the conclusion, of course, an ordinance was drafted, a development agreement was drafted, it was presented to this body for recommendation, which you unanimously approved, and that went on to the city commission at 2 readings, February 3rd and February 17th. Both were approved and adopted. That development agreement has been executed, and it was recorded as of March 1st. Moving to the overlying zoning district designations for the property. Again, they both share that FXM form-based medium. And you can see from this map here, you've got a lot of FXM in the area. You have some neighborhood business and tourist facility, which is pretty common for the Causeway. I would imagine most folks are used to seeing that looking at a land use map of this area. So what is the description of a form-based medium? And well, for the most part, it's in an urban center zone, consists of higher density mixed-use buildings that accommodate retail offices, row houses, and apartments. It has a tight network of streets with wide sidewalks, steady street planting, and buildings set close to the sidewalks. That's the general description. Our code does have a use matrix, what are permitted uses within a zoning district. And in this case, a hotel is a permitted use by right in the FXM zoning district under our use matrix. So we've got land use compliance, and now we have zoning compliance as a permitted use by right. Moving to dimensional standards for FXM, the table I provided here is the basic dimensional standards for our form-based medium. And so I've basically aligned those with the proposal. So the first category here is when you look at allowed and permitted is the number of stories. You're allowed 2 stories by right. You can request city commission approval for a 3rd story. They are requesting that approval. They are going to request a 3rd story for the city commission. From a building height standpoint, again, we have a 3-story building. So they're asking for the maximum of 35 feet, and that's what the code would allow. From a front setback, because of being FXM, you have a minimum of 2, maximum of 17. So it gives a little bit of opportunity to pull things closer to the street where it's appropriate. The proposal as it sits, and again, it could be tweaked as it moves forward just a little bit, but the proposal on the east end, the closest point is 12 feet to the property line, and on the west end. And on the east end, the east end it is 12 feet, the west end it's 2 feet, I believe. I may have flipped that, I apologize. But it's got one corner of the building, and the applicant will probably show you, that comes close to the building, but then it juts away from the property line, and the building actually sits quite a bit away. But I apologize, I might have got those reversed. Moving to side setbacks, both the east and west side setback requirement would be 15 feet. That's what they are proposing, and the rear setback is a minimum of 15 feet, and that's what they are proposing. So it complies with the dimensional standards of the Land Development Code for the FXM when you apply the code to the proposed plans. Our next analysis, if you will, is looking at the comprehensive plan for compatibility, and of course we do this with all projects. And so staff did a pretty deep dive into the existing uses around the property, the surrounding uses, looking at building height and massing and density. And we determined that a 3-story hotel at this proposed density on these properties, together with the potential development patterns in the area, because you do have some vacant land, combined with the existing uses, would determine that this is consistent with Objective 2.9, which used to be called Objective O in our former comp plan. So we believe that the use is compatible with the surrounding uses, both that are in place and that could potentially be developed on some of the vacant land in the area. From a design review standard standpoint, there's a number of criteria in your staffing that we've provided a pretty lengthy analysis of each one of these, but I'd like to hit on just a few of them. And of course, this is reviewed not only by our community development department, our team, but it's also reviewed by the city arborist, engineering, fire, parks, public works and utilities, solid waste, and sustainability all weigh in on their particular portion of the project. So I'd like to probably focus on the ones that I think are probably a little more critical to when folks look at these criteria. I certainly can go into greater detail if there's questions, but for the most part, I think folks are looking at parking and stacking and off-street parking requirements. I'll go into that one first. So this particular project was reviewed as if it was a normal hotel. The parking criteria was used in the code. The applicant's going to talk, and I know you've heard about the fact that this is going to operate a little different than a traditional hotel, but for the purposes of the code, we applied it as if it was a regular hotel that would operate with guests and not basically being used by and large by one user, in this case the Toronto Blue Jays. So the parking spaces as required would be at 68 hotel rooms, you have 0.8 spaces required per room, which would require 55. They're proposing 55. And then the meeting space has a parking criteria, and there's 4 required, they've provided 7. So the requirement is 59, and they have provided 62, and these will all be underneath the building, of course, off-street. Architectural style is another one that I know comes up, and I know the applicant and their team are going to talk about specifics about the style, but of course, our code requires that you select one of the 5. They've done that, coastal vernacular. That process of designing using that criteria in the Cooper-Johnson guides has occurred, and I'll talk in a few minutes about the Architectural Review Committee who did review this application. But they chose and followed that criteria, and that those plans were provided in your backup. Public art, they will integrate public art during the infrastructure. They've already been speaking to the Assistant City Manager who handles that. Parkland impact fee does not apply because it's a transient use. Citizen participation, this does not require a plan, but they did have to send out a letter of notice to everybody within 500 feet. That did occur. We have not received any comments, either pro or for or against. It's just been silent to that. And then the biggie I think everybody looks at is traffic impact. And so in this particular case, we looked again at this site as if it was a standard hotel. They were required to do a traffic impact analysis. That analysis had to include what the roadway level of service is, what the existing uses are coming off that site, and what would the impact be if this was a normal hotel. And in your backup, you'll see that the way the property sits versus a hotel today with the car wash, with the existing trips from the car wash, and the vacant property, which has obviously no existing trips, there's a net decrease in the number of peak hour trips. So again, no degradation to the roadway expected, and if it were to be a normally operating hotel, we would expect that. I think in this scenario, it's going to be less of an impact because of the operational plan that they'll talk about during their presentation. So we don't expect them to have to do a transportation management plan, mobility improvements, except for, as you know, in the development agreement, they've agreed to do the off-site improvement, the crosswalk at Michael Place, working with the city and Pinellas County. And that is something that they have to do as part of the development agreement. So those are the areas that I think are probably the ones that we have the ability to serve it with sewer and water, public works and utility. Have no problems with the ability to provide the demand. So those are the areas that I think are the most common. I certainly can answer questions about any of the other areas, and your backup did include analysis of each one of these. Previous committee actions, the Development Review Committee did, including all those groups that I talked about within the city, did review this application on January 12th. All the DRC comments at this point have been addressed or addressed in the recommended conditions of approval. And then the Architectural Review Committee reviewed this application formally twice. First time on January 4th of this year, the second time on March 1st of this year. They did unanimously approve the design with one minor suggestion for the applicant to consider. This was a line of a roof on a particular portion of one of the buildings. And I think the applicant heard and saw the logic and may very well speak to that during their presentation. Having said that, staff recommendation is to finds that the application DR 2201 for design review is consistent with the applicable review criteria for approval subject to those following, for subject to the following conditions, excuse me. The applicant developer is responsible for meeting the minimum criteria of the Land Development Code and for acquiring all other jurisdictional permits and approvals. Construction plans shall be consistent with the approved design review plans and the executed development agreement, because again, we have two layers of essentially approval here. And then that third one is that the design review approval shall expire in 12 months from the date of the City Commission design review approval unless the applicant obtains infrastructure review approval and vertical building permits, and that is a requirement under our code, but we've reiterated in the comments so it goes into the record. And with that-
Mr. Pasqua, those three items that you just identified, will you be willing to restate those at the time in which a motion is provided?
Absolutely,
Okay, good.
absolutely.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll be happy to answer any of the questions you may have
Joe, I
with
did
regard
say-
to the technical review.
I did. On the setback, 12 feet on one end of the property, 2 feet on the other, that'll have no bearing on the city sidewalk there, though. Am I correct?
No. If you've had a chance to look at the site plan, the portion where it's 2 feet is where the property line and the building sort of come to an angle, and it's just literally the very corner of the building is that closest point, which is how we measure setbacks. But by and large, the building, as it juts away from the sidewalk, it's not right on the sidewalk. It's the closest point. It's probably the best way I could describe it.
That's fine.
Are there any other questions of Mr.?
Yeah, Joe,
Yes, sir.
in the staff report on page 8, under circulation and mobility, it states that there's going to be a one-way access driveway, and that this is designed as a right-in and right-out only configuration. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but that means to me that people have to be traveling east to make the right turn in. So they're coming from, excuse me, the park area toward alternate 19 to make the right turn in. At one of our previous meetings, we talked about the buses that are going to be utilized. And in fact, there were some pictures of the buses actually making a left turn.
Yeah,
into there.
let me
So
point out.
All right, let me just finish, and maybe the applicant can address this. So my question is, are the buses going to have to go somewhere and turn around, or do they still intend making a left to go into the entrance? And are the buses small enough so that they're not sticking out on both sides of the median in high-traffic situations?
So the specifics of the busing and transportation, I'm going to defer to the applicant. But let me go back to your original question about what right in, right out means. When you consider a movement, it's when you're traveling down that road. So in the case of the only way you could access this site really from the road, not coming across a median, is going eastbound. So when you're going eastbound, you're going to go right in, right out. That's why it's called that. It's just a nomenclature. The buses, and I think the applicant will speak, are going to be queuing going westbound, and they will cross the traffic the way you saw it before. And the applicant will talk to that. But for the purpose of describing the entrances, because the road going in front of it, you would basically, the movement of the road in front of it is eastbound. So it's right in, right out, if that makes sense. That's why it's described that way.
Okay, so there are going to be left turns from the westbound lane into the hotel. And you used an interesting term, which was queuing. How long is the queue going to be? I mean, how many buses are we talking about?
I think
And the
those are
applicant
questions
can
for the
address.
applicant.
Thank you.
Yeah, the logistics and the management plan, I'm not prepared to answer those.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome.
Joe, this is the one area that kind of, I'm the grayest area, I think, in this whole process, because this is also county-controlled, the median cut. Okay. Now, to me, it looks like the median cut that's there is really meant because it has a stack-up lane for people coming from the causeway from the water side and then making a left into the shopping center. So what we're proposing, or what we're saying, is the bus is going to come from the east and it's going to make a left where the median cut is really set up for people going in the opposite direction. I guess I'm confusing you with that, but the way that the median is, that does not seem like the median is set up for a left-hand turn by the bus to get in there.
And to be honest, I don't know how to answer your question, but what I can say is this, because again, these are things I think the applicant probably would need to address. What I can tell you is the county has to approve this project. It impacts their roadway. So if there's anything that needs to change about the roadway, the county's going to make sure that gets done. So I don't want to speak for what the county may or may not require. I do know the applicant has stated publicly on more than one occasion, they've spoken to the county, showed them their configuration, showed them their plan, and they've indicated to us that the county is okay with it. So I'll just have to defer to the applicant on those types of things. And certainly if the county has a requirement or something that's going to need to happen as a part of the approval, then the applicant, I presume, will have to do that.
Okay.
Are there any other questions of staff? Hearing none, would the applicant like to come forward?
If you give me just a minute, I'll queue up there.
Evening, Chair, board members.
Evening.
Rod Coleman, SDG Architecture, 793 St. Christopher Drive, Dunedin. I'm pleased to be here because it's been an arduous process. I think it started probably a couple of years ago. And I've got one image here that from an early design, and just to kind of give you an idea of the transformation that we've gone through. I know we've met at least 4 times with the Architectural Review Committee, twice with this particular design. And we have a much better project because of it. And so there's where we started a couple of years ago. I don't know if this board ever reviewed that or not, but that was on the smaller parcel of the two, or I'm sorry, the larger parcel of the two that we're here tonight with. So the J is coastal vernacular. We've met and have approval from the Architectural Review Committee. And the first round, they made several suggestions, and we took all those in, and we felt that they were justified and actually improved the project, so we incorporated those. We are 2 stories above parking, 68 rooms, meeting space for the primarily for the Blue Jays use. We have some minor dining area for other guests. I can tell you, it's my understanding that most of the nutrition for the Blue Jays comes at the facility, the Player Development Center on Garrison. And we do have a pool. The building will be completely solar powered. You'll see images in a little bit with the panels. And it is a fortified construction, meaning that the construction, the ICF, it's insulated concrete forms, and it's solid concrete reinforced, and it's been tested in Mexico Beach, and I'll let Doug Anderson talk about that. But this, moving around the building to the counterclockwise, this is the west facade, traveling east on Causeway Boulevard. We do have 10 rooms, only 10, that have balconies, and it's these west-facing rooms that have those. And we also have 3 ADA rooms as well, making up the total of 68. The rooms are generous. They're 500 square feet, plus or minus, and you'll see in some of the room layouts that we have on our plans, there's 2 queen beds, and the reason is that they're going to have 2 players per room in most cases. We have a total square footage of 57,968 square feet, air-conditioned. We do have 5 sets of stairs, 2 elevators serving the 2 floors. We are, as Joey said, AE 10. Our design flood elevation is 12. The overall building height to the main portion of the building is 35 feet. We do have some towers for stairs and elevator overruns. Moving around to the south facade, this is in an earlier meeting with the commission, they suggested that we try and reduce the impact of one large, long building. So we were able to take the facade and break it up into 3 smaller elements, giving it a little bit better scale, and it kind of shows that way. And I'm going to have some aerial views shortly that you will see that a little bit better. This is it's actually the east facade, and it is the one that's closest to Frenchie's Market. And this is where the bus parks, and the players will get on and off the bus at this location. The tower on the right is a stair elevator combination. Here we are looking at the site plan with Causeway at the top of the image. We have our one-way drive-in on the west, circulation to the exit drive on the east, the right-hand end of the image. We do have, and we've discussed with solid waste management systems and truck access for trash, using the state DOT computer programs for the traffic circulation and the bus and garbage truck radiuses all worked out. I don't have a cursor, so it's hard to point, but you can see the pool in the center of the image there. And the parking, of course, is 68 spaces all under the building, except for the bus. The first level of rooms, the large space at the top of the image is their meeting room. There's some offices on the upper right-hand corner. You can see now that portion of the building that's 2 feet from the property line, Stephen, that you were asking about. It's at the eastern corner
I see it there.
of the building, yeah.
Hey, Rod, is there any parking for guests, visitors? Or is it all just, would it be registered guests or players?
Just for the guests of the hotel. That's never 100% full, so yeah, there's always.
So if they had visitors, they would have to park in a.
Yeah, it's the same concept they have at all the hotels.
Okay.
Yeah. The second level of rooms, this is where we have a crossover from the front building to the rear. And in the corner of that front building, you'll see some dining tables. That's for the other guests of the hotel. It's a little breakfast area. But like I said earlier, the primary nutrition for the Blue Jays is going to be at the Player Development Center. This view is looking southeast. You'll see the orange canopy is Frenchie's on the causeway. The parking lot on the right-hand side of the image is Marker 1's parking lot. The brown roofs behind our building is our neighbors, the condominiums, and off to the far left you can see the Walgreens and Sheriff's headquarters, North County. So we have tried to provide as much buffer along the sidewalk, with the trail being there as possible. This is moving clockwise again, looking east. You can see the water tower now. That vacant parcel on the left side of the image was one that we were considering. However, the development order for that parcel required a restaurant there. And so we abandoned that, went back, purchased, added to the property on the south side of the causeway, and it's where we are at today. Now this is moving around to the south side. And where we were breaking the building up into 3 smaller facades, and good view of the solar panels.
Nice job, Rod. Nice job. A+.
It's been a hard process, but we made it. We're really happy with it. I have to tell you that. Here we are at the east end, looking west. See our neighbors on the left side of the screen. Frenchie's Umbrellas on the right, and there is a bus parked there at the end of the building, and the parking lot on the upper corner on the causeway. We have met, this is probably a good place to stop and talk about this, median cut. And we've met several times with the county, and they have no concern about left turns westbound into this driveway. And when we go in for our final, as Joey mentioned, if there's anything to be done, we're going to have to do it, comply with whatever they
Hey, Rod,
need.
in that picture right there, Rod, where's the crosswalk going to be?
I believe it's at the east end, up near the Frenchie Market,
So where that,
but I'm not positive. Do you know, Doug?
Yeah, the county will dictate where it goes because they own the roadway.
Okay.
The intent was to be able to create a crosswalk so that the baseball players could go to eat, and also Frenchie's now is going to park their employees behind their new facility. So it was a twofold thing for their employees and for the players to be able to cross. The actual location, the county has not determined yet.
okay.
This is a little closer image of a living wall that we're going to use. We're trying to soften, again, our whole street front, sidewalk frontage on Causeway Boulevard. Code requires that this wall have 50% opacity, so that's the reason the planting will be thinned on the top to allow for some visibility there, at least above 42 inches. And you're looking at the one-way drive on the right-hand side of the screen, heading into the property. A little better visual of that. Straight ahead is the dumpster enclosure, so the truck will pick up and continue driving through the 2 buildings. And there is a shot looking east with the crossover on the upper level of the rooms and a nice hydrangea bush in the foreground. In our pool area, this is where I think it was mentioned earlier about a roof change. These 2 balconies, the lower one is for the Blue Jays meeting room, and the upper is for some outdoor dining for the other guests for doing breakfast and what have you. But the outside stair, we continued the roof from the balconies further south and actually encapsulated over the top of the stairs at the suggestion of the Architectural Review Committee, and we think it improved it, so we're happy about that. That's all I have open for questions. I'd like to invite Doug up and then Charlie to speak about operations and so forth.
Are there any Any questions, Mr. Coleman? Very nice job. Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening. Glad to see you all again. Doug Anderson, 1413 Bayshore Boulevard in Dunedin. We're very pleased to bring this project to the city because it'll be the first fortified building that is commercial owned that's 100% solar powered. And we're very, very proud of that fact, and we're looking forward to having more buildings in Dunedin go along that trend. We met early on with the Pinellas County Transportation Department at the bequest of the city to discuss the left turn in with the buses. And after they reviewed everything that we had and how it was laid out, they came back and gave us no comment. They didn't feel that anything had to be moved, none of the islands had to be moved, and they were comfortable with the way it was set up. You know, as you know, with the car wash today, that's a left turn out, or left turn in for most people. The buses themselves, I think you asked the size of the bus. Right now, they're 50-passenger buses. That's what the team uses traditionally today. I think if that became any kind of an issue with backup traffic there in the left turn, they would certainly look at a smaller bus if that was needed be. The buses arrive at 6:45 in the morning, which is kind of a low traffic time for the Causeway. And they have 2 loads they pick up. So they'll normally transport about 100 players. So they take them to the facility. They will return back with those same players at 4:30 to 4:45 in the afternoon, again coming from the Player Development Center and then doing a left turn into the property. But the way we did this driveway is we kept it in the exact same place it is today, just about, with the way it turns in with the Causeway, so with the car wash. So we did that. We went through, I think we had 10 comments that came back from the original application we had with the Architectural Review Committee, and all of those were very good, valid comments. It never hurts to have 10 more, or have 7 or 8 more sets of eyes look at a project that are qualified. So we incorporated everything they came up with, including the one comment at the final reading, which was that little shed roof over that stairway that you were discussing. And we're very, very happy with what Shoreline was able to come up with. This has been a difficult birth. We started this process in January of 2020. And, you know, just to give you a little bit of background, we started out at the car wash site with just the car wash. And then it was, the site across the street was made available to us. There were some in the staff that suggested that might be a better option. So we went and pursued that, went to the development agreement portion with that, to be told that the applicant from Hampton had promised the city and promised the mayor that there'd be a restaurant there. So she reminded him very distinctly that that's what she expected to see there. So that caused us to move back. If you remember, we came before you and we were looking at, we had some confusion because we hadn't purchased the piece of property to the west yet. So we went ahead and went through with that purchase and did that, combined the 2 pieces for one development agreement, and we successfully completed that process with the city last month. So Rod was talking about the testing of the ICF. You know, we did have one project in Mexico Beach that was in the eye wall of the hurricane that everything else was kind of destroyed completely around it, and it was left there by itself. And I was the general contractor on that project. And so we kind of now know that what we've been saying about insulated concrete form construction actually works. There's no better test than that test. But if anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Yeah, Doug, I need to go back to my little gray area that I mentioned
Okay.
to Joey, okay? You said early on that the county doesn't have any issue with what you want to do with the left turn, the bus making his left turn. Are they going to send the city a letter, or is there going to be something of record that the city, or Joey, I don't know, maybe you need to answer this. Is the city going to require something from the county that's basically says what
Well,
you just mentioned?
What I understand, sir, is that the county owns that street.
Yeah, right. It's their control.
So it's under their control. So we had, our civil engineer went with us to those meetings with the county where we laid out and this was back when it was just 51 rooms. However, the driveway was in the same place. So that didn't change. So we looked at the size of the islands and where the islands are today versus a left turn in with the bus. The county sent an email to us and said they had no objection to what we were doing, and if we need to go back to the county and get a letter from them. This has not come up before as an issue, but I know that we had received that from them, and I think that it would be no issue in getting a letter.
So you do have a letter, you
No,
don't
we
have it
don't.
yet?
We have an email from them saying they had no objection.
Well, and again, I'm just, mentioning my gray area. I would think that the city of Dunedin would definitely want to have something from the county, since they control that road, as to whether or not it's fine the way that it is, or these are the modifications that we're going to require somebody to make.
Yeah, we
to
specifically
accommodate
asked
this.
them that, if there are any requirements that were going to be from being, any modifications to the islands or the lanes, and they said no. And, we still have to deal with them on the placement of the crosswalk. So that is still an unresolved issue. We would have liked to have placed the crosswalk that was close to Frenchie's on the corner there, because that seems to be where most of the pedestrian traffic will be traveling back and forth. Our players will be going to Frenchie's, to Publix, to all the other restaurants along there. And then with the advent of Frenchie buying the property next door to us directly to the east, he picked up a considerable amount of parking, and that's where he wants to have his, he's short of parking, as it is. So that's where his employees are going to park, so it'd be a benefit to both. Okay. But when we go back and work with the parking, with the county on the crosswalk, if the city requires it, we will get a letter from them.
Just out of curiosity, Doug, that crosswalk is going on Pinellas County's road?
It is.
Is that at your expense, or is that
Yes.
the county? That
Yes.
is at your expense?
Yes. Yeah, we stipulated to that. There's one just to the east, a little bit closer to Walgreens down there. And, there's been an evolution in crosswalks. What we have here, we have flashing lights, just like we do at the trail crossing on Skinner on Main Street. But there was someone hit there not long ago, and it was quite a serious accident. So I'd like to say that people pay attention to the flashing lights, but sometimes they don't. The technology today is, besides that, some municipalities, especially in Texas, they'll put flashing lights in the roadbed that flash in addition to the ones on the sign. But we'll comply with whatever the county asks us to put there.
Yeah, I remember that was a concern from some of your neighbors out there that stood there at the podium.
Yeah, they were thinking that it'd be safer to have a flyover, but I don't think the county would. I don't think the county would go for that. Anybody else?
Yeah, let me just pick up on this issue a little bit. Apparently what we're going to have within a very short distance are two crosswalks. We now have, left and right turns going east and west into the shopping area and now into the hotel. We are going to have queuing lines, which was the phrase used earlier. Buses, at least two buses would make a queue. There may be some other traffic backed up by it. And it seems to me that there's a potential here for some problems. And I hope when this goes forward that those are addressed. I hear you say, well, it's the county's responsibility and if they want us to. But I think that those feelings have to be communicated to the county. And be sure that, and hopefully it'll be on behalf of the city, and be sure that those things are taken into consideration. And if not, then work with you on whatever resolution there might be.
Okay, and that's a good point. I will tell you that at no time will both buses be there at the same time. There will not be two buses in a row. The delivery and drop-off schedule varies by about a half hour.
Okay. Well, that's the operational plan.
Right, yeah, that's.
The reality 5 years down the road might be a little different.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. All we can do is comply with what the requirements of the city were, where we did a detailed traffic analysis with a state of Florida certified traffic engineer that looked at all of the occurrences on the causeway, looked at the intersection, looked at everything that there was to look at with that, and we gave that to the city, and it was satisfactory. But yeah, we're not done with the county yet, sir, and we have to do the crosswalk with them, and we'll go back, and if the city requires us to give more documentation on their willingness to accept the islands in the position that they are, we can certainly get it.
Thank you.
Bet.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, Mr. Anderson.
Charlie Wilson from the Blue Jays would like to talk to you for just a moment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and fellow LPA members. Thank you for having us. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. And my comments will be quick, and definitely want to be available for questions if anybody has any. The long and the short of it is, I think Rod started off and said it's been a 2-year project, and I'd like to correct him. I think we started in December 2019, and yeah, and I commend these guys because I didn't know them at all, and they took time out of their Christmas vacation, their holiday, to meet me in Dunedin. Over the break, we had a lunch, and then what turned into sort of one lunch meeting turned into about 35 phone calls and 7 site visits with Mr. Anderson here over the Christmas holidays. And when I told him I had to go back to Canada on January 1st, he said, no problem, we'll meet at the car wash site at 7 a.m. on New Year's Day. So I knew he was committed, and that was the partner that I wanted. And it's been a long ride, but it's been a great ride, and I think we've enjoyed the process. We're really excited about being in Dunedin, and that's what I'm here to tell you. The project, I think, looks great. The Blue Jays love it. We're ecstatic with the way the buildings come out. We're ecstatic with all the architecture. It's not quite what we were hoping for. We really wanted to have 75 rooms, but we understand that it's a partnership here, and we had to make a concession, and we also respect the fact that there's residents out there that maybe had different feelings about it. So we respect that, and we're happy with 68. The flow's probably going to be 64 player rooms, so that's 128 players, right? 64 times 2, and then there'll be 4 staff staying at the site. So it's a good chunk of our group. I will tell you quite honestly, at the present time, I have 126 hotel rooms between Oldsmar and Clearwater Beach. So we've got a big crowd down here, but my primary responsibility is the minor league players, and that's the group that I'm trying to take care of, and this hotel is going to be a big part of that. So we're really excited. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say about the buses. And of course, Chairperson Brandt, we had some communication, and happy to follow up on some things that I've researched. But the buses are going to park on Garrison Road at our facility. They're not going to be here very long. I think if they're coming to pick up the players, they'll arrive at somewhere between, as Doug said, 6:45 and 6:55. They'll arrive, and they will idle there for no more than 5 minutes. And if the players aren't on the bus, then they're going to have to figure it out because the bus is leaving. And when we drop the players off at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the bus is going to drop off the players and maybe wait 2 minutes in case someone forgot something, and then the bus is gone. We have no desire to have the bus out here idling, taking up space, doing anything on the causeway. I am happy to answer any questions or.
Will there be any Toronto Blue Jay insignias, signs, banners? Or are you going to kind of keep it low-key?
I think we'd be open to doing what the city and everybody here would like us to do. My only complaint with the picture is that the Canada flag didn't catch enough wind. I'll deal with Rod about that later. But I think Doug and his team will tell you that they've got some great ideas for some artwork and designs inside the building. I know they want a picture of the Rogers Center at full capacity right behind the check-in desk. We may have some pictures throughout the halls and in the rooms. We're open to that, and we'd be delighted to have that. But I think our priority is a clean, safe, updated facility that's in close proximity to the training, our PDC on Garrison. and one that's got all the modern amenities and the features. So we're not going to get, the Blue Jays aren't going to get too wrapped up in the art and everything. We want your input and other people's input.
We'll be ready for spring 2023?
I don't think so. Maybe September 2023 if everything goes according to plan.
Keeps going, we can make it eligible for spring 2022, huh?
Hope we're, fingers crossed, hoping for good news on
Yeah, I
that
played
labor
in a
front.
late night last night, so
Yeah, so,
I appreciate everything you guys do for this
First of all,
community, you know
I
that.
applaud the
you too.
solar panel apparatus. Do you plan for the buses to be electric buses or diesel?
Great
That's
question.
what we were.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. This was at the other meeting, not the last meeting, but the meeting before that I suggested that, and then we followed up with that. So thank you for bringing that up again.
I apologize for forgetting.
Oh, no, please. I'd like to know if there's any new news.
Yeah, so Diane reached out to me. Actually, we spoke after the meeting in September, and then
Right.
we had some correspondence on email. And I'll be very frank, we are looking into it. We spoke to 2 or 3 company sources. I don't have any traction on anything definite right now, but I would love feedback and help on this because we are committed to go electric. If that's what needs to be done, we will do it. But I don't sort of have anything in place this minute, this month. And I'm wondering just the cost and the availability of these right now I'm not sure it's in line with what companies are able to provide us. We're certainly not in a position to pay $5,000 a day for 2 bus trips, but we would be in position to pay something less than that, maybe 20% of that, or 5%, 10% of that, 1/5. My math.
So everyone out there in video land, if you know of anyone, please let him know.
But thanks. We would love to do that if a commitment to the environment.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up again. That's great. Any other questions, comments? Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. It's great.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak regarding the application? Anyone else? Okay, then I'd like to open this up to the public. If there's anyone in the public, this will be your public hearing opportunity. If you are interested in coming forward, now would be your time. You'll need to come and approach the dais, identify yourself. No one from the public? We don't bite. Okay. Public hearing is closed. Members of the board.
We've watched this project evolve, and I think we're quite aware of the major sticking points. I think the outcome today that Rod presented, his architectural renderings and everything, were very impressive. I was really most impressed with our architectural review board and the very detailed review that they did, and the suggestions that they made. And then very pleased to hear that you all took the time to not only listen and look at what they had proposed, but to accept mostly all of the things that they suggested. So I agree. I think a bunch more eyes on a architectural side. Not that Rod isn't capable of dealing with this. He is quite capable. But I think you all did a great job architecturally. And I think it will be a great asset for not only the Blue Jays, but for Dunedin and the Causeway. So thank you.
Excuse me, from where we have come with this project, this is amazing. And to see the first 100% solar-powered facility in the city of Dunedin being brought to us by the Blue Jays, I think is pretty incredible.
Awesome.
It looks great.
Very nice, especially the roof, the way you've done that with the solar panels, just spot on, perfect. Anyone else? Do I have a motion?
I would like to make a motion for acceptance of application DR 22-01, the J Hotel.
And that is with the conditions that Mr. DePasqua identified, those three. Do we need to review those again? Thank you.
So again, staff does find that the application is consistent with the review criteria and is subject to the following conditions. Number one, that the applicant developer is responsible for meeting the minimum criteria of the Land Development Code and for acquiring all other jurisdictional permits and approvals. Construction plans shall be consistent with the approved design review plans and the executed development agreement for the project. And then third and lastly is the design review approval shall expire within 12 months from the date of the City Commission design review approval unless the applicant obtains infrastructure review approval and vertical building permits.
Is that all right, Mr. Sandbergen, to have that?
I would love to ask Jennifer how I would revise that motion.
Can I ask a question
Yes, sir.
before you revise it?
Yeah.
Excuse me. So you did make a statement that we need everybody's approval to do this, including the counties?
Correct.
So the city will require some formal letter, whatever, about how they want to do the median, or they like the median the way it is, or that they're
Sounds like that email to me is what identifies the fact that they don't have any problem with it.
Yeah,
That
and
written
I
approval?
think you've heard us from a staff level talk about the next step after design review is approved, which is, generally speaking, there's two things that sort of happen, and I think in this case they're going to happen somewhat concurrent, which is the infrastructure review and then vertical building permits. And the infrastructure review, because it's on a county road, our engineering division, who leads that process, I would be willing to bet is going to require something of the county that they approve the design. They are going to be touching the right-of-way of the Pinellas County, so what I would expect something much more formal than just an email.
And I would too, and I wanted to
Yes.
hear you say it,
Yes.
so thank you.
I would expect potentially a right-of-way use permit, an access management permit, something like that, because again, even though these are existing driveways, you have a new driveway being built, the county's going to have to sign off on that. And at the same time, they may very well have a question or two about those curb cuts. And I think the applicant has said they understand that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Back to our motion.
Jennifer, I didn't write down everything he just said,
No,
so.
but he was willing to say that, and that's all right. We'll-
The conditions, should I rephrase it?
Well, you did
That was Adam.
a motion for approval with the conditions.
Yes, and then
As
Mr.
stated in the staff report, or as identified here by Joseph?
Okay.
Is that
Whichever you-
satisfactory? As
Do I have to remake the motion, though? Or
No.
No, as I understood it, you did a motion with approval with the conditions, with the three conditions that were identified.
That's correct.
Is there a second?
I'll make the motion for a second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve application DR 22-01 with the conditions identified by Mr. DePasqua. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by the same sign. This motion has been approved, passed unanimously. Excuse me. Okay, we'll move on to our next agenda item, which is application ZO 22-02, 935 Douglas Avenue, rezoning property from downtown commercial DCOM to downtown core DC. Has anyone had any ex parte communication regarding this application? Hearing none, I'd like to invite our city staff to come forward or tell us all about this.
All right. Good evening, everyone. I'm a new face over here. Thank you. Thank you. Molly Cord on behalf of the Community Development Department. Tonight we have a rezoning application, Z002, for 935 Douglas Avenue to change the zoning designation from DCOM, downtown commercial, that was the formal name of it, to DC, downtown core. So this is just the general property information. It's about 0.15 of an acre. It's located at 935 Douglas Avenue. The owner is W&M Partners 100 LLC. The representative is Michael Bryant. In the graphic shown before you, 935 Douglas Avenue is the red outlined rectangle on the aerial photograph. The vacant building on the property is a one-story metal building with office. The building, originally constructed in 1997, has historically been used as an auto repair shop, Gary and Mike's Auto Clinic, until the business was sold to W&M Partners 100 LLC in August of 2021. The parcel is currently zoned DCOM, downtown commercial, dating back to the building's construction. The applicant would like to renovate the existing building in order to expand the existing brewing operations associated with the Dunedin Brewery. However, the DCOM zoning district no longer exists in the city's land development code. And any property with the DCOM zoning designation will be deemed legal nonconforming. As determined by the city, in the event that the property attempts to make any improvements by permitting or redevelopment, the property would need to be rezoned to a corresponding zoning designation in order to make the property compliant. So as you can see within that rectangle, we've got the DCOM over there, and the adjacent and adjoining properties are all zoned downtown core. Just to also kind of discuss the land use category, it's activity center, and as...
Excuse me, would you go back again?
Sure.
One. So is there another DCOM right above it?
Yes, there is.
There is.
Yes. There's actually, I believe,
in
3
our-
other properties.
I'm just going to ask that. How many of these
3.
DCOMs do we
We've
have?
got 2 DCOMs and 1 DI, which is downtown industrial.
Yeah, I remember why we had that, but I didn't remember why we had the DCOMs.
Yep.
I was hoping Bob Ironsmith would have been here to help explain that to me.
He actually, well, he does have a memorandum that he gave to us
I read
stating
it.
his support, which was in the actual staffing, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. The community development staff recommend approval of the rezoning from DCOM to DC to recycle an existing uninhabited building in order to expand the brewing operations of the Dunedin Brewery. If the rezoning request is approved, the proposed use would make the property legally conforming. Therefore, staff finds the application for rezoning approval consistent with the applicable review criteria, and staff recommendation is to approve application Z002 and ordinance 2203. And as you can see with the slide, these are the tentative hearing dates. First hearing with City Commission would be on April 7th. Second hearing with City Commission would be on April 21st. And I will take any questions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of Ms. Cord? It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Any questions regarding this application? At this time, I'd like to open this up to the public. If there's anyone in the public that wishes to speak to this application, now would be your opportunity to come forward. Anyone in the public that wishes to speak to this application, please come forward at this time.
I don't think he's been sworn in.
Hi.
I'm Tracy Short. I live at 946 Highland Avenue, number 43.
Were you sworn in before when?
I wasn't. Do I
Okay.
need to be sworn in? Or?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. So I just had a question. We live kind of directly behind the Dunedin Brewery. So would this be just for the making of the product, or would there actually be activities that would be held at this site?
I do have the applicant here. If you would like to speak to that, I can certainly answer that question.
No.
You would have to go up there.
He needs to
I'll
be
sit
sworn in
down.
too.
Was he sworn in?
No. Yes, but you'll need to be sworn in first, sir.
Oh, so I was wondering, the purpose of the building that you all want to take over, are you, what is the purpose of the
Oh.
building for the brewery?
Okay.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear the testimony you are about to give in this proceeding is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. We're pretty much doing the same thing.
You'll
except-
need to state your name, please.
Oh, Michael Bryant, 937 Douglas Avenue. So we're pretty much doing the same thing. We just had to have more width in the front, so there's not really any more production figured. It's a little bit where we can do a little bit more experimentation. So we have another brew system. The original brew system was over on Spalding Road, and now we can put it there. We can do some things we just don't have the room to do there. But it shouldn't be any more impact.
Okay.
Actually, it's kind of better because we have an access on Douglas if we wanted to bring stuff in there instead of in the back, if that makes sense.
So you're going
This-
to, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So you're going to maintain the existing structure and use it
Yes.
as is?
Yeah, there's only change we have to make inside is there's a 5-foot wall that was an office, and it already has all the doors and everything else we need in there. And then we're taking a wall and run it through where Mike and Gary's office was, and that's going to be a little lab. And it'll be in a situation where a lot of people can't come to the back. We used to do tours and all that, but COVID kind of spoiled that a little bit. So we'll have a place where someone could just walk up and see the lab and see what's kind of going on in a small lab.
So the fence between the two properties now will go away?
Part of it.
Part of it?
We're trying to see if we can work out a way to get, where it's hard to get through from the back. So we have a plan to bring a gate to get some access from the back, Highland Court. It's kind of hard to get. What people have to do, there's some Airbnbs back there. They'll come down the street, and then we can't let them in the back of the brewery because that's where the brew house is. Mm-hmm. So they come up there and go, what are we going to do? And they got to walk all the way down, kind of frustrated, and walk around. So part of it is being able to eventually, once we do some work outside, have a gate back there where they can walk through.
But is that going to interfere with what Ms. Short was talking about as far as additional activity with people coming and going more so than they would be now? I'm concerned about that based on what she did request the knowledge about.
We can just leave it shut, but I think it helps everybody back there to get access to Douglas Avenue.
Was that your concern?
No, actually, I was thinking that it was going to be more of a musical venue, so that was my concern. It doesn't sound like that's going to be the case.
Yeah, no.
No parties, no after hours?
No more than what's going on now for the last 25 years.
Okay. All right, so Ms. Short, is that okay? Yeah. Okay, all right. Any other questions?
I missed.
No, I'm good, they answered.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming forward.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Michael.
Is there anyone else in the public that wishes to speak to this application? This would be your chance. Okay, hearing no one else, public hearing is closed. Members of the board.
Oh, I drove by there. I frequent that area, and I understand Tracy's question, and I'm glad that you were able to bring that to him. When I saw him sitting here, I knew that question was going to come up, so.
Do I hear a motion? Do I see a motion?
I'll make a motion for approval of application Z0, or is that CO 22-02?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve application ZO 22-02. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign. That motion carries unanimously. Now, do we need to also identify the ordinance on that, since that's a 2203?
I actually am not sure. I would think maybe if the
Jennifer, is
attorney.
that something that we would want to also vote on?
Yeah, I was just.
Yeah, I mean, I
The
would think that
rezoning.
would be part of the motion.
That's the rezoning.
Well, that's actually what performs the rezoning. So, yeah, it would be,
That was it.
Okay.
yeah.
Yep. Okey-doke. All right, we'll move on to our next agenda item, the selection of candidate to fill the vacant position, the alternate.
I'm sorry to interrupt real quick.
That's okay.
Just to make sure that I heard the motion. So the motion that you made was to approve the application and the ordinance 2203.
It didn't include the word ordinance. That's why I was double checking to make sure that that was.
I think I just include it for clarity, if the motioner's willing
I'm-
to
I
amend the
am
motion.
The maker of the motion, yes.
Okay, and the second is okay with the amendment?
I accept.
Okay, you could vote on
And
the
then
amendment.
Is there anyone that has a concern regarding their vote? All right. It's still a unanimous vote on the application and ordinance.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. The selection of candidate to fill the vacant position, which would be an alternate position on the local planning agency. We have received information about 4 candidates, and I'd like to just give you an overview of the process that we will be utilizing tonight for the selection of this one candidate. Nominations will be made by the board based on the 4 applicants' information that we have received, and I will open up the nominations in just a moment. I do want everyone to know the purpose of this. We have a 9-member board for the local planning agency. 7 are regular members and 2 are alternates, and we have just had a vacancy from one of the regular members, and therefore one of the alternates will be moving forward based on a recommendation by the city commission at their next meeting. And then the alternate that's selected tonight would be filling that alternate position that is vacant at this time. Our meetings are the second Wednesday of the month at 6 o'clock here in City Hall. Again, our board is not quasi-judicial, even though it does state that in the overview that the city has prepared. It's not a quasi-judicial board. However, it's structured in a quasi-judicial manner for the benefit of those that come before it. So I just want to make that clarification. So again, this is the term would be 3 years for a regular member. I'm not sure what it is for alternates, because it's something that when a vacancy occurs with a regular member, the alternate would be recommended by the city commission to fill that regular position. So I'm not familiar with the term limit on the alternate, because it's really
It's rotating.
based on the
And then
regular members.
There's no term limit until you're a regular member, and then it's 2 full terms.
Correct. Okay. So we have 4
I
candidates.
have a question.
Yes, Mr. Macero?
I'm going to ask this question by memory. Somewhere along the way when we did this the last time, there was another document out there which gave a list of qualifications for the proposed appointees. And one of the recommendations that I thought was in place was that any of these individuals that had requested to be on the LPA, they needed to at least attend 1 meeting. And I guess my question is that still a valid requirement?
I'm not familiar with that requirement.
That was something, no, I agree with what you're saying. Yes, that has always been something that we're familiar
We've always
with.
said that.
We've always, it was, and that's why I made a point of contacting people. And when you and I spoke, just so that I was sure that they had been contacted by city, 3 of the 4 candidates I have personally spoken with in the past. And I know that one of the candidates that I'm familiar with is here tonight and was at the last time as well. And that's not to say that 2 others might still be out there that I'm not familiar with, but they will have an opportunity to speak to us tonight if they desire. But yes, that has always been something we wanted them to see us in action. And I think that was something that should still be followed through on. I don't know whether that can.
I guess that's my point here. If that in fact is a requirement that we've made, I guess we have one of these applicants that's definitely attended a meeting because he's sitting right there. I'm not sure that any of these other individuals has ever attended a meeting. So where do you want to go with this?
I think what I found interesting, the last time we did this, we met virtually. I think it was September of 2020, and we had about a dozen applicants.
Right.
And suddenly we're down to 4.
Right.
So I guess this would go to Rebecca. Should this be posted on social media or a city website that there's a vacancy?
It is.
It is.
Oh, it has been? Okay. I just wanted, okay.
And part of, do you mind?
Go right ahead.
Part of the reason that this list actually was larger prior to us sending it out, we reached out to every candidate to ensure that they, with COVID and a lot of things changing, people's time constraints or different things have changed. So what we did was, we did reach out to every candidate, and actually we removed quite a few at their request. And so these are the candidates that confirmed that they were still interested.
Perfect answer. That clears up what my question was.
Letting them know that there was a vacancy coming up and that we were in the process. And so trying to put it out there.
But when you did that, did you identify the requirement of them being in attendance?
She's not familiar.
I am not familiar with that requirement, so.
Madam Chair, if I may speak to that.
Yes.
In your code, it has that anyone that's interested in serving on the LPA complete not only the application, but attend at least one LPA meeting in order to be considered for appointment.
Thank you very much
So-
for that clarification.
So here we are with four people that wish to be on the LPA, down from a list of what was 12 at one time.
I had even more than that.
And we only have one of those individuals that
Well,
is
we're not sure. I'm not sure if there are other, I know Dr. Broom is here. Thank you for coming back. But I don't know, there are other faces in the audience that I'm not familiar with other than staff. Are there other candidates in the audience tonight?
So we're looking at you. We know everybody else.
Would you like to be? I do have.
Are you a candidate?
I am not a candidate.
Okay. And are you a candidate?
That's George.
Anyone else? Okay, so Dr. Broom is our only candidate, and he has been at, I know one other meeting, but, so, yes. But now this is your second meeting in attendance, and you have fulfilled the requirement, which is based on what the city code is.
But we don't know about anybody else, because we don't know them
But
personally,
no,
whether they've been
well,
here.
no, because the only one that I did not contact was Stephen, because when the city clerk and I spoke about this, she had already contacted them for their availability. I know that Linda and I spoke back in August of 2021, and Leland Goldston also I spoke with him and Dr. Broom on August 12th, 2020, and invited those people to come to this meeting. And Dr. Broom is the only one that did come back then. And then you were also in that Zoom meeting that we had. So that's right. So this is really your third meeting in attendance. A+ for you.
I just remember this one and the last.
Yeah, that's okay. That's,
Madam Chair?
yes.
If I could raise another issue. It's been I thought that the normal process was to elevate a senior alternate member to the board.
That is correct.
The agenda item says to select one of the 4, basically, to be
Yes,
a member of the
Well,
board.
and I did clarify that, because it really is, we're filling the vacancy of an alternate position is what when I did bring this up. And then the commission will be making the choice, will be either taking our recommendation for the alternate that's selected tonight, as well as elevating the senior alternate member to the commission. So it's out of our hands in terms of, we will make the recommendation to them, and they in turn will go ahead and vote on the commission will be voting on the elevation of the alternate member, and then the installation of the incoming alternate member.
Thank you.
So thank you for bringing that up, just for clarification for everyone's benefit.
I do have one other concern on one of the candidates, Linda. I believe I recall that she is currently serving on 2 other boards or 2 other committees.
According to her paperwork, she is not.
She's
unless
not, okay.
Well, but then this application for her is,
She gave up all the other boards and committees
that's
to
what
be
she
on this
says,
committee, and
but
she's
it's
not
been
even here
several
tonight.
years, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right.
She's not serving on 2 committees right now.
Well, according to her latest application
Well, but
there.
her application is an old application. There's nothing that's been updated because I looked back on my previous application for her and I don't see anything updated.
So how do we know that,
This was August of 2020.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know any of these people. I mean, other than the good doctor here now.
Well, I think that he's fit the conditions of the code.
Well, I guess my point was, does anyone know any of these people and that they've actually attended?
No, they have not attended.
Okay.
Answering the one question on Linda Businger, she's currently serving on the Historic Preservation Advisory Committee, but that's the only committee that she's
Okay.
currently serving on.
All right, thank you
Just
for
one,
that
okay.
clarification, yes.
That's fine.
Okay, so we have four applicants, but only one
that
is
qualified.
is
One
qualified.
So do I hear a motion? Or a nomination, excuse me, I need a nomination. And each of you can nominate.
I'll nominate Mr. Bloom for the alternate
Is there a
position.
second?
I'll second that.
It's been moved in, oh, and we don't need a second, I'm sorry. Here, I'm in my other mode here. It's been nominated that Dr. Broom be our alternate member.
And
All
there
those
are
in
no
favor?
other choices.
There are no other choices. He is the one that has fulfilled the obligation of being present. And by the way, just for clarification, you have also been on our list the longest, Dr. Broom. So thank you for hanging in there. Right. So nomination has been made. I will declare the nominations are closed. And voting shall continue until we have already, it's got to be unanimous because there's only one nomination that fits the bill. So congratulations, Dr. Broom. Welcome aboard. Yes, actually, I can't welcome you aboard. The commission will welcome you aboard, but your name will be forwarded to do you know, Rebecca, what meeting that will be on their agenda?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
That would be a work session, probably either the last meeting in March or the first meeting in April.
Either the last meeting in March or the first meeting in April for you two, because
I don't know the
Mr.
deadlines.
And so both names will be forwarded to the city
Yes,
commission.
yes, they will, and I know in the past I've received a letter, so will they also do that?
Yes.
They'll receive a
With all
letter?
the appropriate paperwork.
Okay. So from my microphone, congratulations. You're very welcome.
So he won't, he may, no, I guess he won't participate in the March 22nd meeting, that special
Oh,
meeting.
gosh, that would really,
by the board.
yeah, but
Won't
that's
make-
what she's
Let me
saying.
look at the deadline, sorry.
Yeah, it would be really nice because, yeah, we have a second meeting. I'll be announcing that in a moment.
It's got to be the commissioners that have to approve it, so.
Well, let's see, let me just see what the, if I've got anything that shows when the next commission meeting would be.
It would, I could get it on the March 22nd work session in the morning, and then
That would work.
it would be the LPA.
Night.
I'm not here what you're asking.
We have a special meeting for LPA on March 22nd, which is a Tuesday. It's not the same day, and it's not, but it's a special meeting that we've been requested to participate in this month. The city clerk is looking at her agenda for the city commission, and they have a work session on the 22nd that morning. And at that time, if that could be a part of their commission workshop.
I'm putting myself a note to add it for tomorrow morning.
Okay. Are you available on March 22nd at 6 o'clock in the evening here?
Yes, 6 o'clock in the evening works.
March 22nd.
Super.
Super, thank you.
He needs approval,
After approval.
commission approval.
Right. Yes. And that would need to be, so that he knows, he would need to know.
We'll get him an email that afternoon,
Okay.
if he's appointed.
We'll call you at 5:30.
That's really nice to be able to be right, yeah, we don't usually have it so expeditious, yes, that's great. Well, again, congratulations, and I was just gonna announce that, open forum, we have open forum if anyone has anything that they would like to bring
Is
up.
Joey here?
Yes. He's hiding.
No.
You're up, Joe. So, can I ask what has happened to the project that we previously reviewed for Douglas and Maine? And the name of that?
Oh, the Sterling.
Yes, the Sterling Hotel.
Well, George was the lead on that, but I think while they have not formally withdrawn, I think they're out of the picture. The property's back on the market. So I think that project is, typically you would submit a letter to cancel, withdraw your application. I don't believe we've received that, but we haven't heard from them. I think that they've left walked away from the project.
Several months ago, there was a nice townhouse complex off of Pasadena. There's a couple different ways you could access it, Alt 19 or Pasadena. They
Yeah,
kind
it's
of
called
left
the
it.
Isles of Bayshore.
Is that still?
By way of background and memory, you may recall, that actually came and was continued back in July of last year. And since then, the applicant, we've worked with them on redesigning that to comport with our comprehensive plan, but I'm just not sure that project will be coming forward either at this point.
Okay. I don't want to sit here all night, but George was at that, I went to that meeting at the Hale Center about the south overlay. Someone verified that the Architectural Review Committee does not see plans, or do they ever see plans on a single-family home? It was brought up that there were some big houses being built and it should have been.
It's not required, but any applicant who, and their design team, if they wanted to have a cursory or courtesy review and wanted to go, we certainly wouldn't stop them from doing that. In fact, we would encourage it, especially in high-profile areas.
So the design review is conducted by city staff. The architectural review, similar to LPA, is volunteers. Is that correct?
It's the board.
So design review, the process is both boards and staff. So the staff does what essentially we did here this evening, which is do an analysis of the application. The applicant presents their project, and then it goes through a public hearing. So it's actually both.
Because that came up pretty strong during that meeting, and it was just to make sure that's clarified. I mean, I knew what the answer was, but there was people in that meeting that were leading the public in a lot of different directions, and I think that's important for what's coming up here on March 22nd, as well as what you guys are going to be faced with after that. I think personally, I walked away with more questions than I did when I came into that meeting, and it was at a level where George and very few people in that room could comprehend what was being tossed at us. And there was probably a lot of confusion, and I know there's a lot coming up, and we're not going to sit here all night. I promise you that. I'm sure you've heard this many times.
Yeah, if I might, George Kinney, I just want to add that we've heard that. We know that. I've had several conversations with the city manager about how to kind of approach, in particular, this meeting on the 22nd. So we're going to kind of back up before the consultant starts and kind of lead into how we got here, why we got here, and talk a lot about that process piece of it, so people have a better grasp, I think.
Because the lady was sitting next to me happened to say, what is that about? And I was like, there's probably two people in this room that understand. And I said, and George is one of them. So that, yeah, you understand what I'm saying. And
it's tough stuff, because,
yeah.
I don't want to speak too much because you're going to be considering this.
Right.
But, an overlay is not an easy concept to grasp. It's not an easy one to explain, quite frankly. So We're going to do our best to kind of get out in front of that, and hopefully we'll give you a strong presentation on the 22nd.
Can I ask one other question about that? And if you can't answer, just say, wait until the 22nd. We have a corridor study that we did. Is what we're going to talk about on the 22nd something bigger than that corridor study?
It'll be outside of that corridor study.
Outside of that corridor. So that corridor study will remain intact?
Yes.
So, okay. So this is a broader scope of that area.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Ford.
I'd like to ask what the status is of the Gateway property across from the hospital.
So the developer is going to be coming tomorrow.
I think,
Yeah, tomorrow.
Tomorrow night.
So the developer is going to be coming tomorrow to ask to do an amendment to the development agreement. They'd like to, they've got some changes they'd like to, and they have to amend the development agreement. But, I mean, the project's moving forward. We've seen infrastructure has been applied for. That's under review by staff at the moment, so that's moving forward. But you will see an agenda start item on tomorrow's commission meeting.
I have one more, and I promise this is it. I was interested in that, the agreement, that development agreement on the J Hotel with that hurricane evacuation plan. Are there any other hotels or any other businesses in Dunedin that have that same program that they would have to be evacuated in the event of and I saw it was a hurricane watch, which we're going to go to a hurricane watch. Will that be the only one that's active in Dunedin, or are there others?
So because it's tied directly to additional density and temporary lodging, it would only be, and it has to be in an evacuation level A, that only impacts one building existing, and that's the Hampton Inn.
Okay, so this would, okay.
So you have to hit all three of those criteria. It has to be, you have to ask for the additional density, you have to be in the evacuation level A, and it has to be a temporary lodging facility.
Okay.
So
there will be two of them. Okay, that's,
my guess is, unless there's another hotel going somewhere on the water, these might be our only two. The best way to do, yeah.
I know you guys have had a long day. I'm done.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Roberts.
Thank you. I didn't want to bring this up during the hotel discussion because I didn't want this to reflect on them. But Exhibit I in the package you gave us is a sustainability matrix. And we've been talking about that on and off here for a number, I guess I've been here 4 years, it comes up and whatever. And there have been some improvements in the last year or so, I guess. I look at the description here about the three main stages, and the statement is to submit sustainability matrix proposal of points that developers plan to implement. And so, just as an example, the J Hotel had 191 points, and that's out of what, 400 is it?
320 max.
320, I'm sorry. Okay, and that's a substantial kind of, from what I've seen before, kind of a number. Then it says, these points are not locked in and can be changed at any time during the process, as long as the 100-point minimum is met. Well, just take 190 points. I mean, there's a lot of room in there to change things. I'm not talking about the hotel, but it's just an example. Why can't the developer have to show cause as to why he wants to get out of points, make the points mandatory, and have some kind of a substantial discussion about it, not just that they can change it. And then we never hear back if changes are made during the process.
Yeah, and that's not that uncommon. What has to happen under the code? So we'll step away from the project you just heard, and we'll just talk in general.
The hotel is not it. It was
right.
just happened to be here.
You have to. With most projects, you have to achieve 100 of the available 320 points. But there's no requirement that they, other than I believe you have to go from 3 different categories at least. So there's those 2 tests that have to be met. But as they work through a project at this stage, which is conceptual, I think you know that, everybody up here has been doing this a long time, it is possible that at some point they may change and say, well, we're not going to be able to do this, we're going to do that, as long as they, again, meet the 100 points and get it from those 3 areas, at least 3 areas, then the code would be met. It doesn't trigger a re-review, it doesn't trigger a nullification of their design review. And that's a staff level review. And as you probably know, we have a sustainability program coordinator who's the person that I provided in the backup, that's Natalie Gass. And she will ensure that not only what they committed to do is put on the building, but if they do have to change something and it does affect the points, that it clearly doesn't go below 100, and anything they change out may make sense. So that's sort of part of her process once this is finished and we get into infrastructure and then ultimately into construction, because at the end of the project, she needs to verify that the things that were committed to being done are done.
Okay, well, my point is this. Who is the final say on a decision by the developer to change one of these items?
The developer gets to choose as long as they follow the rules.
Okay, so you don't have the ability to say, the change you're making is not appropriate? Ms. Gass does not have that ability? They just change
As long
it?
as they're garnering points within one of those categories and meeting the rules, that they can adjust.
Okay. Is there some way that when this is done in a substantial way, and I don't know what the definition of that is, that we could hear back later during your processing? Here's somebody got 150 points, but by the time they got to development, it was 110, or 150 to 180.
I think what we could ask, maybe we could ask through Public Works, ask Natalie to do a summary of some of the previous projects and maybe report back on. I don't want to put work on another employee who's not in our department, clearly, but maybe it's something Natalie could report on how these projects shook out as they were completed.
Is there one in particular that you're thinking of, or is it just a general?
No, just that statement caught my attention, and it.
Well, we used to receive that entire sustainability matrix, and I really liked reading all those.
You did get it.
I didn't see it. I couldn't pick it up on mine. All I got was Natalie's letter today. I wasn't able to, and believe me, I've tried really hard getting as much of that as I could. But I didn't
The
see
exhibit that was uploaded to Granicus included her cover email to me explaining where the approval, along with the entire matrix that she graded.
I couldn't pull that up.
Okay. I'm
Okay,
done.
so everyone else got it but me. Everyone else got to see it. Okay, well then it's my iPad. Sorry.
And I'm of the opinion, if that's the way the code is written and that requirement to hit 100, whether you said you were going to hit 300 and wound up at 150, or you wound up back at 101, you still met the code.
Yeah, and let me add this, that I think a lot like what you heard this evening with Mr. Anderson and Rod working together, listening to what they hear from the architectural review, you can see they basically took all the advice and made their project better. I think the same thing holds true when Natalie works with developers on sustainability points. They tend to go up versus down.
I was going to say, that's what I was thinking more.
I think there's a genuine effort here to meet the sustainability requirements, and in most cases, I think you're used to seeing in the 150 to 170 mark. That's pretty average. 140 to 160 is what we typically see for points. So I think there's a genuine effort to do what's being asked of them, and we don't find developers that are really shifting gears in the middle of projects like that. But certainly we can ask Natalie if she's willing to provide something to you.
Okay.
And we could provide it as a backup to maybe a future date.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Sure.
Is there a chance to see the sustainability changes on the city hall, the new city hall? Is there?
So, because that doesn't go through design review, I don't know that they submitted an actual matrix. But perhaps Natalie has some information on all the sustainability aspects of that structure. Yeah. Again, I don't want to.
No,
Yeah, I
we
mean,
don't
we
need to
wouldn't
give
typically
her more
assign
work
something,
than
but
she's already got.
we can certainly ask her if she's willing to provide a summary, or something for the group to consider.
Is that an agreement with the board? Would we want that?
If the project met the code at the time the permit was issued, then that's what it is. However, I am sure that somebody looked into that, all of that requirement, and hopefully they met our own code.
Okay. Is there anything else for open forum? All right, so we'll move on to our special meeting, which will be our next meeting, Tuesday, March 22nd, here at City Hall at 6 o'clock. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed by the same sign? Okay, thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you for watching this City of Dunedin government meeting. If you'd like to review any part of this meeting or watch any previous government meeting coverage, you can watch these meetings online anytime through the city's website, dunedingov.com. Stay connected with everything Dunedin. Follow the city on this channel and on the city's Facebook page, through Twitter, and on the city's YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching this Dunedin television production.